Welcome to Raw Talks episode 4. We have it here on best marketing strategies and a call in industry expert to do the same. Today we have on the panel Mudit Sharma, the growth manager at Snapdeal India. And today we are going to unfold e-commerce marketplace specific marketing strategies. So without wasting any further time, there is an entire timeline that will guide you for which question is answered when. And do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. And now, let's begin. So, hi everyone, I have Mudit with me, and first of all, welcome Mudit to Raw Talks episode 4.
Hi Raghav, it's an absolute pleasure to be here and thank you for hosting me.
Thank you so much for being here. So, first of all, Mudit, I would like to know from you what are we going to discuss about today, because this is primarily about PPC and we discuss marketing strategies over here. So, what is the segment that we are going to specifically talk about in this entire discussion?
So the segment that we'll be talking about has been the talk of the town, and even ever since this pandemic hit us, everything has been moving online. So that is what is going to be the center stage for us. We'll majorly be talking about e-commerce and very specifically e-commerce marketplaces. Since I'm employed with Snapdeal right now, so I think e-commerce marketplace as a business is what I'd like to talk more about.
Perfect. Mudit, I have a doubt that before we begin the question and answers, I would like to know about some more clarity on, because we see more e-commerce oriented terms around moving around. So, and there is less clarity upon that. So, first of all, I would like to know from you the difference primarily that is between e-commerce website. What is about e-commerce merchants, because this is one of the other terms that we primarily hear, and how is it any different from an e-commerce marketplace? So these are the three terms that I would like some major differentiation upon.
So I think this is a great place to start with. And this has been quite a gray area, which we have been overlooking for quite a while. So I think it makes more sense to differentiate these from one another. So I think an e-commerce marketplace, as we all know, is an Amazon or a Flipkart or a Snapdeal. So anything which just provides you the services which enables you to sell online and the buyers to buy online, something which connects the sellers with the buyers is an e-commerce marketplace. Now talking about some private labels or some labels which started and have evolved into brands like Babycook.com, the Mom's Co. We have lot of examples, flooding around us. So these are e-commerce merchants who have a line of product or a line of service to offer, and they own a personalized online website which is readily available from apps like Shopify as well. And they just all they need to do is just get on board and start selling. So that is an e-commerce market. That is an e-commerce merchant. Sorry, or an e-commerce website, while something like of the sorts of Amazon or Flipkart is an e-commerce marketplace.
Right. So e-commerce merchant is someone who is into the selling perspective of the site. E-commerce marketplace is more like a portal where buyers and sellers connect, and
Yeah,
what merchants start for their own becomes a brand or a private label is going to be as an e-commerce website. Is it what we are saying, Mudit?
yeah, very much so.
Perfect. So, Mudit, putting more emphasis on the marketplace segment, I would like to know how is the marketing strategy any different when we talk about an e-commerce website? Any different from e-commerce marketplace? But before we begin, all those who do not know anything about the e-commerce website, I have already done a podcast, so you can check about in the I button or the description below for anything related to the e-commerce website. I have a proper marketing strategy in place, so please feel free to click on the link below. But let's talk about the differentiation of the marketing strategy. And over to you, Madhu.
Yeah. So I think marketing strategy is all about knowing your product, knowing your line of services very clearly. Now, talking about an e-commerce website, I think they have mostly a very specific line of product or a line of services that they have to promote. So I think they'll have a product based marketing majorly. They'll have something to sell, right? And that something would mostly be a product. So for them, marketing strategies being built around shopping campaigns, being built around catching user eyes, and being built around uh, performance driven marketing would make more sense.
Right.
For an e-commerce marketplace, they do not have a catalog of product, they do not have a portfolio. All they have is services to offer.
Mhm.
For example, I would ask somebody to sell on my platform. Now what I can offer them is quick delivery, hassle free payments, maybe some discounts, maybe easy listing of the products, and save all the hassle that they would go through for creating an e-commerce website of their own. So I think they'll be relying more on promoting themselves as a service, while an e-commerce website will be promoting themselves as a store, which is selling a product or a service. So I think this is the key differentiator between the two.
Right. I think that gives me a whole level of clarity upon the differentiation of the marketing strategy. I would like some more clarity on the terms regarding. So first, let's begin with what platform do you more orient to or incline to when you say that a marketplace is supposed to kickstart their marketing strategy, and anything about like we have the lifetime value associated to it or ROAS, anything around that would be better.
So yeah, so there's a lot when an e-commerce marketplace plans their strategies. Uh, to start with, since they do not have a product of their own, they have to treat the products of the sellers as the product of themselves. But then there are a lot of metrics, business metrics that come into play while deciding that. Because I would not want to promote a product which has a bad rating, which actually might have a fine rating but does not give me good margins, also might have a high user acquisition cost, although it might have a good conversion rate. So there are a lot of metrics that come into play while deciding that. Also, these marketplaces, they charge their sellers, to pay them over and above for advertising separately on platforms like Google, Facebook, or even on their own platform. So this has evolved as a whole new gig. Flipkart has started their own advertising platform. Amazon has their own. So they allow people to promote their products on their platform itself. They'll give you some homepage banners. They'll give you some banners on the side. They'll give you some video space. So that is the kind of intelligence that they're applying to make the maximum out of each and every point blank space that they have available on their real estate. Actually, now because of this evolution of making money out of everything, websites have been started to be referred as real estate. So that is where this term came from. Uh, I think for themselves, they need to create a lot of brand awareness, brand being themselves, because since the competitive landscape is really, really huge, and that competitive landscape has actually satisfied the people a lot. There's a lot of uh, deep cataloging being done, a lot of product range to explore, a lot of discounts on the offer, and a lot of convenience as well, which is like return, try, maybe try and buy. So all these kinds of evolutions that we are experiencing right now, which are making marketing more and more intelligent. But what still stands in the place, and it serves like ground zero for an e-commerce marketplace, is for themselves to get the eyes, get the attention of the audience, and establish themselves as a renowned marketplace, so that sellers also come on board and buyers also show interest in the products that they have to offer.
Perfect. As we already spoke about a bit in the terms of value proposition, Mudit, one thing that I would like to ask you is if an e-commerce marketplace begins today, so and they do not have a unique selling product, okay? So because there are a lot of competitions, everyone is selling everything, and that everything is mostly common in the terms of product segment. So how should one be like approaching this value proposition game and make it super strong as per your experience?
So I think again, I would like to say that it's not the kind of product or a service that you have to offer what drives your business, because what you just mentioned is really a difficult scenario to thrive, because considering something as a startup which might not have a lot of backing up in terms of capital as well. I mean, they'll have a difficult time if they do not have something unique to sell to the people, because even if we take an example of ourselves, even if we place ourselves in the shoes of a customer, why would I or you go and buy from a platform which I don't know of when we have options available like Amazon and Flipkart, right? So this loyalty thing, or this word of mouth, which encourages people to get engaged with a platform where trust has already been established, is actually a key factor in driving a business. Now the competition that we have, they have already established all this, but for a newcomer, it is actually a must have to have a USP. And in case they do not have that, I think there are a lot of loopholes in the existing system. We just need to have an eye for it. I'd like to quote an example here. We all might have heard of the B2B selling platform, which is Udaan, right? Now India has evolved into one of the key investment areas for e-commerce giants from across the world. Now even Flipkart has been bought up by Walmart. So we see all kinds of investments flowing in, and through this journey of 10 to 12 years, more than a decade, nobody had an idea to start selling things from a business perspective online. But the founders of Udaan thankfully looked into the matter and they just seized the opportunity and they are they are flourishing really, really well, right?
Right.
So I think there are a lot of key areas still which need a solution because there are a lot of problems. It's not about always inventing something new. It's also about making existing things better or solving an existing problem. So today's businesses are no more just selling a product or providing a service. It's more about providing a solution. So it's more about
Right.
serving a package.
Yeah, totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. Speaking of Flipkart and Amazon, coming back to the same quotient rather, we all know that Amazon and Flipkart started from a niche of
Yeah.
selling books primarily. How important do you think is this niche selection if we start this particular e-commerce marketplace today? Should a e-commerce marketplace approach something from a very particular segment, or they can go broad? And if they go broad, how should they position themselves in front of the users? This is something that I would like to know more about.
So I think there are a lot of factors that somebody needs to look at. Now, Flipkart selling books is not actually what led them to what they are today. They never would have thought that they would evolve into something of the sorts that they are right now. They just started with a simple perspective of selling books, and they were not even doing it online. They were basically collecting orders and delivering them by hand. So that is the history of Flipkart that I know of. So I think it's not about starting with a particular niche or starting with a broader portfolio. So we have a lot of examples to look at things. So, for example, Flipkart, they started with books and they are really thriving in the market. They have emerged as the number one e-commerce platform in India. While on the other hand, we have platforms like ShopClues. They started like Amazon and Flipkart, and unfortunately, they had to bite dust recently. So they're mostly closing down their operations. So it's not about the catalog or the line of service that you have to offer. It's about having the right kind of intent to survive in the market, and that intent actually develops from the kind of confidence that you have in solving somebody's problem. So like I said in the previous comment that I made on your previous question as well, it's not majorly about making things available to somebody. It's
Mhm.
about how you make the things available, because right now I don't think there's a gap left where people are missing out on getting a product online, from medicine to cash to clothes to apparel to electronics. Everything is being delivered now.
Right.
The only area of improvement lies where what can be done better and how can it be better. So that is the only area. And again, I have one more example here. So like years ago from now, Paytm started this online wallet business. They thrived
Right.
really well, and
Mhm.
fortunately they had demonetization during their reign, and they
Yeah.
had a really, really great time because of that. Now that Paytm had people's trust, Paytm had everything in their favor, still UPI has made Paytm more or less redundant,
Mhm.
right? So it's not about doing the same thing over and again that makes you a failure. It's not that. It's just that you need to keep making things better, and that's how we grow. Even if we look at ourselves personally, you and I, we work together. We were never as good as, you know, as confident as talking over a podcast the day
Mhm.
we began our careers, right?
Right.
But then now here we are. We are in a place where we are trying to help other people leverage our knowledge, gain some insights, and help their journeys through the career and make themselves a success. So I think it's more of an evolution that we are looking at. It's not a one-time gig. It's not a destination. So business, running businesses and taking it to success is a journey, and it keeps
Mhm.
on continuing. It keeps on going until and unless you stop, you give up. Otherwise, it's all about innovating, making things better, and with the kind of technologies at our hand, with the kind of data intelligence at our hand, I think it's more than possible to find the loopholes and start providing solutions rather than providing services and products to the people.
Got it. I think the prime game starts with presentation and solving a problem, and that is more of a
Definitely.
summary of what we entirely comprehensively rather talked about.
Yeah,
Um,
makes sense.
so, Mudit, coming from the seller perspective, I feel this we oftenly see that marketplaces are more for buyers, and there is one unknown fact about the seller perspective or the seller marketing gig of that goes into the picture and encourages the platform altogether. Would you like to put some highlight on that?
So I think, like it is said, what sparkles is what sells, right? So I think buyers are the side of an e-commerce marketplace that help them shine very well, because they are the ones that are helping us churning numbers. They are bringing us the orders They are bringing us the revenue that we need, and these are the numbers that we need to pitch to the investors to gain capital. These are the numbers we need to go EBITDA positive. These are the numbers we need to stay cash positive in the market, and look all slush green in the numbers in the newspapers and the media coverages. So, which is why the buyer front gets a lot of coverage. But it's not that the seller side doesn't have these leverages or the efforts that e-commerce marketplaces make to make lives easier for sellers are any less. There are a lot of discounted models. There are a lot of automation efforts being done. For an example, there is a lot of manual effort in uploading a catalog, uploading a portfolio of products. Now that has been automated by almost 60 to 70%. My experience at Snapdeal tells me that. Also, we have mostly automated the seller panel where they needed to print the invoice from, get the manifest from, update the order details. So all these processes are being automated to make the lives of the sellers easier and allow them to focus more on expanding their businesses, because a seller's business expanding on our platform is actually our business expanding in terms of the products that we sell and the kind of revenue numbers that we do.
Perfectly. I also think that there are some strategies that the marketplaces are orienting sellers to actually the return, the charges are being like totally vanishing from the seller's perspective, because this used to happen that when a product from a buyer side gets cancelled or returned, rather we prominently have something that seller will face the charges for. But most of the marketplaces are eradicating this, and this comes as a USP from the rather the marketplace. This becomes a unique selling proposition for why a seller should consider this as well. So anything upon that particularly?
So I think you've been keeping yourself pretty updated with the market terms, and this is one of the policies that we have recently been framing at Snapdeal, where we'll be waiving off return charges for most of the sellers. So I mean, this is also being done with only perspective of making lives easier for the sellers. And so there have been multiple margin distribution models which were being provided to the sellers to operate on. There were contribution margin, gross margin, then there were marketing linked plans. So while we have been experimenting with a lot of these pricing plans with the sellers, companies are now resorting to a singular plan, which makes lives easier, which makes the mathematics more simpler, because from data point of view, the numbers are really complex. There's a lot of churning that needs to be done. So which is why we're trying to look at these kind of transactional numbers to be simplified from a bird's eye view, to make them more simpler and to make it easier for sellers to comprehend these plans, because otherwise they just they get confused and they actually end up paying more. So we are trying to resort to a singular margin based model with all our sellers, where we are trying to waive off the return charges as well. So I mean, it's while externally people might see that things are getting more and more complex, but that internal complexity is only being undertaken to make the external appearance of the things more simpler, and it becomes easier to comprehend for people.
Thank you for making this so much insightful, Mudit. I have one other question that brings into the marketplace picture, but more of the strategical point of view. So we know that there is pull marketing, also termed as reverse marketing, to be very specific, and there are certain platforms like search, display, YouTube, and we talk about promotions when we speak about Google ads over there. If you were supposed to begin the entire marketing segment or marketing strategy, what would be your take on it?
So just to clarify for our viewers what pull marketing is. So majorly pull marketing is referred to, attracting audience which is already in the market looking for something. They have awareness. They are probably somewhere in the middle marketing funnel, which is about consideration or maybe making a purchase. So attracting those audiences to your platform is what we refer to as pull marketing. So I think search is the best kind of pull marketing that we have available right now, because all we need to do is set up the right kind of a campaign, tap into the right kind of an audience, and have the right bids and ad messaging to deliver to the people. Because a lot of people are looking around for products, a lot of people are looking around for services across Google search, and as we know that across the globe, more than billions of searches are made every second. So I think this is a very, very raw platform which brings a platter served on a plate, where audiences are just waiting for you to pop up your ad, and they are just ready to buy.
Right.
Also, I would refer retention marketing partially as a pull marketing, because and that is mostly to do with user experience or the discounted pricing models. Because say, for example, I made a purchase from Myntra. Now, either it would be the user experience that I've had. Maybe it would have been a 5-star experience because of which I would go back again, even without being shown an ad or something, without any promotional activity being done by Myntra. I might go back to Myntra and make a purchase. That is only based on my user experience. The other thing is there are, you know, attractive upselling, cross-selling, reselling models that brands resort to. Like you make the first purchase and on your second purchase you'll get a 20% discount, or maybe you make a purchase now and we'll deliver it to you in a day. So these are like kind of leverages that we have. These are intelligent marketing techniques that we have to retain the user, to increase the user lifetime value. And now that I talk of it, I mean, people have been relying more on CPA, CPC, and these kind of metrics. But I think these are the short-term metrics, and these only define your success for a very shorter run. But if you are into the game for a longer run, and if you are looking to, if you're looking to build and stay and survive and thrive, I think ROS is the key metric that you need to look at, and the lifetime value is the another key metric. I mean, if you have these two, going in your favor, I think CPA, CPC, CPM, they'll automatically start falling into place for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mudit, for bringing the matrices side of you into the picture. And guys who do not know, I have ROAS formula over here, and I have actually put the target CPA and difference between target ROAS specifically to Google Ads bidding strategy details in the description below. Do not forget to have a look over there. So, Mudit, I would like to know about one last question from you
Sure.
for the beginner's point of view. So, when we talk about beginning into Google Ads, like starting, most of the people who are looking at this might be starting their career into Google Ads, and um, there is one thing that comes into the picture. First, rather, there are two things. First is about automation of Google Ads, because we heavily see dynamic search ads being the next thing that brings more value to an e-commerce marketplace, because manually creating so many ads is something that is not feasible for any large e-commerce space. So something about Google Ads automation. And the next thing would be anything that you think about Google Ads certification. Like, is Google Ads certification really, really important for somebody to begin their digital marketing career?
Yeah. So I think to begin with, it's mostly about learning the basics of anything that you want to start with. Be it Google Ads certification, or be it using any other websites that have a lot of information to offer. There are a lot of websites being run by PPC geeks. There are a lot of Facebook pages and all. So what I believe is somebody who has built up a career into this segment, what I believe is that information must keep flowing. Knowledge is what you need. I mean, certificates or not, that does not really matter in today's industry, because we are evolving into a space where skills matter, and
Right.
not what documents you carry with you. So I think it's more of a skill based space we are living in right now, and that is where we need to keep focusing on and keep honing on our skills,
Yeah.
right? And talking about dynamic search ads, so I think these are certain products of Google Ads which are of leverage to very specific businesses. They are not proper automation tool. They are not something which will remove manual intervention from Google Ads. So for DSA, for example, like you correctly mentioned, in terms of e-commerce marketplaces, this makes sense to the advertisers who have a very huge catalog, right? It
Right.
makes sense to them. These are just add-ons, I would say. These are just add-ons that Google has already offered. They have put into place to make lives easier for people, to eradicate the hassle that people have to go through to set up those campaigns. And otherwise people have to write scripts into Google Ads.
Right.
And
Mm.
if your Google Ads turn not to be so successful, your entire effort of writing a script goes into vain. So
Yeah.
just to avoid those efforts, this is my personal view. I know people might have different from this, but personally, I believe that these are just add-ons that Google has offered to make lives easier. So I think automation is not here to eat people's careers. It's majorly here to make lives easier. And
Yeah.
I think as far as people have an intent to grow, people have an intent to keep sharpening their skills and keep growing with technology, I think nobody has any fear of losing jobs.
Yeah. So overall, we are saying that learning is not something that a true advertiser should be fearful of, and
Yeah.
this is something that with technology you should always be looking forward to evolve and get better with whatever Google is coming up with the product, right?
Definitely.
That was
Definitely.
all, Mudit. Thank you so much for being the part of Raw Talks episode 4. It was absolute pleasure to have so much insights about e-commerce marketplace. And guys who do not know, this is the third time we are shooting this entire podcast, and
Yeah.
fortunately, we have completed the entire podcast. I hope you liked it. Mudit, would you like to say about like, comment, and subscribe for my channel?
Yeah. So first of all, congratulations, Raghav. This is a great initiative that you have started recently. And guys, like Raghav mentioned, we have already done 3 takes, so I think we deserve a like or a comment from you. And also, as a friend of Raghav's and as an ex-colleague, and having been a mentor to Raghav,
Yeah.
I would like you guys to subscribe to his channel as well, because this is going to be really informative, and this is just the beginning. It is only going to get better for you, and this is going to serve as one of the huge reservoirs of knowledge that you can leverage from. So, all the best, Raghav, with your
Thank
initiative.
you so
Thanks for
much,
having me
Mudit.
here. Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so much.
been an absolute delight. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And that was Mudit Sharma talking about marketplace specific strategies for e-commerce. I hope this video was insightful and resourceful. Do not forget to hit the like button and comment down below what is your favorite part of the video. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.